Hello students, hello teacher. This is grade 7 mathematics lesson brought to you by Addis Ababa City Administration Education Bureau in collaboration with Addis Media Network, and I am Bizuna Makonnen. Today's lesson topic is on Unit 5, four-sided geometric figures. Four-sided lesson topic, four-sided geometric figures. Students, at the end of this lesson, you are expected to identify the properties of four-sided figures like parallelogram, trapezium, rectangle, square, and kite. So, we'll try to see the properties of these geometric figures one by one. So first, let's start from the definition of quadrilateral. Okay, here quadrilateral. Quadrilateral is a four-sided geometric figure. It is a four-sided geometric figure. Here, if you see this one, it is a geometric figure with four sides, and from this, the point where two sides meet, we call these vertices of this quadrilateral, and the angle formed by the two sides or the two adjacent sides, we call this the interior angle of this quadrilateral. And these two sides AB and CD, assume this one is D, AB and CD are opposite sides. These two sides are opposite sides of this quadrilateral. Again, not only these two, AC and BD are also opposite sides of this quadrilateral. Okay, but AC and CD, these two are called adjacent sides of this quadrilateral. AC and CD, these are adjacent sides. Not only AC and CD, you can also name AB and BD to be adjacent sides. BD and DC are adjacent sides. The angles formed by two adjacent sides, we call it interior angle, as you can see. Thus, four angles, this one, the angle formed by side CA and AB, another angle here. So, a quadrilateral, as you can see, it has four interior angles. But here, angle A and angle D, these two angles are opposite angles. Angle A and angle D, not only these two, angle B and angle C are also opposite. Angle B and angle C, opposite angles. These are opposite angles. But these two angles, angle A and angle C, they are consecutive, adjacent or consecutive angles of this quadrilateral. Angle A and angle C are consecutive angles of this quadrilateral, consecutive angles. consecutive angles. Not only these two, and C, B and angle A are also consecutive angles. Angle B and angle D are also consecutive angles. Okay, now another concept in this quadrilateral is it is a line segment joining the opposite vertices. These two are, we call them opposite vertices. This line segment, we call it the diagonal of this quadrilateral. So line segment joining a line segment that joins opposite vertices of a quadrilateral is called diagonal. So here CB is a diagonal of this quadrilateral. Not only CB, these two A and D are opposites vertices of this quadrilateral. Therefore, AD is also the diagonal of this quadrilateral. Now we'll see special quadrilaterals one by one. Okay, so trapezium is a quadrilateral in which exactly one pair of opposite sides are parallel. So here trapezium had this form. These two sides are parallel and these two are not parallel. In this case, we can say this is a trapezium. A, B, C, D. You can name this trapezium using its vertices, and you start from one of its vertices, either in clockwise or in anti-clockwise direction. So here I can name this trapezium A, B, C, D, or you can name it as trapezium A, D, C, B. Or you can start from other vertices, trapezium B, C, D, A, or you can name it trapezium B, A, D, C, and so on. This is how to name this trapezium. Next, here the two parallel sides of this trapezium are called bases. The parallel sides are called bases. Here these two sides are parallel, they are called bases. AB and DC, these two parallel sides are bases. And here the non-parallel sides of this trapezium are called legs of the trapezium. The non-parallel sides are called legs. Here side AD and BC are legs of trapezium. Side AD and side BC, these are legs. These two are the non-parallel sides. And the distance between these two parallel sides, is called altitude of this trapezium. The distance between the two parallel sides is altitude, so we can name this as altitude. If the legs of a trapezium are congruent, then the trapezium is called isosceles trapezium. If the legs of a trapezium are congruent, then the trapezium is called an isosceles trapezium. By the way, trapezium has this form. Even this is also a trapezium. Here, this also it is a trapezium because these two sides are parallel and these two are non-parallel. So this is also a trapezium. Now, we'll proceed to the next special quadrilateral. We call it parallelogram. Okay. Now, let's define what a parallelogram is. Parallelogram is a quadrilateral. It's a quadrilateral in which both pair of opposite sides are parallel. This is the definition of parallelogram. So here, look this one. If this side to parallel to this one, and again, if this side is parallel to this one, then this quadrilateral is called parallelogram. Both pair of opposite sides are parallel. Therefore, we call this a parallelogram. So we can name it by using its vertices A, B, C, D. Now, let's try to find out the property of this parallelogram. Now here, properties of parallelogram. Okay. 1. In parallelogram, the opposite sides are congruent. Side lengths of side BC and AD are equal. Again, AB and DC are also equal. So the first property in parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. The opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. That is, here side BC is this same as congruent to side AD, they are equal. Again, side AB is the same as or it's congruent to side DC. So the opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent or equal lengths. This is the first property. The second property, opposite angles of a parallelogram also congruent. Opposite angles are congruent. This means angle A, this one, angle A is this same as or congruent to angle C. Again, angle B and angle D are also equal. So here, angle B is congruent to angle D. So the opposite angles of a parallelogram are congruent or they have equal measure. The third property of parallelogram, consecutive angles of a parallelogram are not congruent, they are supplementary. Supplementary means the degree measure, the sum of the degree measure gives you 180 degree. Therefore, the consecutive angles consecutive angles are supplementary. Supplementary. This means sum, supplementary means whose sum is this? Sum is this 180 degree. So here A and B are consecutive angles. So the measure of angle A plus measure of angle B gives you 180 degree. Not only this one, measure of angle B and measure of angle C is also 180, they are consecutive. Measure of angle C plus measure of angle D is also gives some 180 degree, and so on. So any consecutive angles of a parallelogram are supplementary. That means the sum gives you 180 degree. So one more property for parallelogram. As we said earlier, a line segment joining opposite vertices is called diagonal. So here, this parallelogram, one of its diagonal is it is AC, and the other diagonal is it is BD. So the diagonals of parallelogram bisect each other. What does this mean? Bisect means one divides the other into two equal parts. This means this diagonal BD divides the longest diagonal into two equal parts. That means this length and this length. Let's assume this point is E. So AE and EC are equal. This diagonal is bisected by BD. Not only this one, it says bisect each other. This means this the longest diagonal also bisects the diagonal BD into two equal parts. This means BE is the same as ED. So the diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. The diagonals bisect each other. What does this mean? From the picture, AC is bisected into two parts by the other diagonal. So it's like AE and EC are equal. AE is equal to EC. Lengths AE and EC are equal. Again, this diagonal BD is also bisected. So lengths BE and ED are equal. BE is the same as ED. So this is the properties of a parallelogram, and then I'll proceed to the next special parallelogram. We call it rectangle. We'll proceed to that. Third, rectangle. Rectangle. Okay, this rectangle is a parallelogram in which one of its angle is right angle. This means if it is one angle is right angle, since it is a parallelogram, its all angle becomes 90 or right angle. So let's define this form. Rectangle, it is a parallelogram in which one angle is right angle. So a rectangle has this form. It's a parallelogram. That means this side to par to this one is a parallelogram. Again, this side is par to this one is a parallelogram. But one angle is right angle. This angle is right means this also right, because consecutive angles are supplementary. If this is 90 degree, this also 90. Not only this also 90, opposite angles are congruent, so on. Therefore, all angles of rectangles are right angle. So here, let's take this rectangle A, B, C, D and try to list its properties here. Properties. of rectangle. Properties of rectangle. Okay. 1. Since it is a parallelogram, all rectangles are a parallelogram, special parallelogram. So it satisfies all properties of parallelogram. So it satisfies all properties of parallelogram. Okay. This means opposite sides are congruent, this with this one, this is congruent to the other opposite side. Consecutive angles supplementary, opposite angles congruent, the diagonal bisect each other. All these properties of parallelogram are satisfied by this rectangle. So it satisfies all properties of parallelogram. Second, here all angles of a rectangle are right angle or 90 degree. All angles, all interior angles of a rectangle are right angle. Right angle, that means it's measure 90 degree. All interior angles are 90 degree. Third property is a special property different from parallelogram. In the case of rectangle, the diagonals not only bisect each other, but also they are congruent. In the case of rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. So the diagonals are congruent. This means length or diagonal AC is the same as diagonal DB. This is for rectangle. Okay, now this is all about properties of rectangle. Then now I'll proceed to the other special quadrilateral. We call it rhombus. Rhombus. So rhombus is a parallelogram in which the adjacent sides are congruent. So here rhombus, it is a parallelogram. It's a parallelogram in which adjacent sides are congruent. Here is a parallelogram. Opposite sides are parallel, but the adjacent sides are also congruent. Look, this one, assume this side, rhombus A, B, C, D. If the adjacent sides AB and AD are congruent, then this parallelogram is called a rhombus. So here let's just try to list the properties of rhombus. Properties of rhombus. Okay, 1. As you can see here, in the case of rhombus, since the adjacent sides are equal and it is a parallelogram, so side AB is the same as side DC. These two are equal. Again, AD is congruent with BC. So as you can see, all sides of rhombus are congruent. So here, all sides of rhombus are congruent. Okay, this is the first property of rhombus. Second, since rhombus is a parallelogram, it satisfies all properties of parallelogram. It satisfies all properties of parallelogram, which means opposite sides are equal, opposite angles are equal, consecutive angles are supplementary, diagonal bisect each other. All these properties are also satisfied by rhombus. In addition to that, all these sides are congruent. Again, one special additional property for rhombus is the diagonals of rhombus are perpendicular to each other. This is another special property for rhombus. So the diagonals are perpendicular to each other. And another property, this diagonal bisects the angle. So the angle of a rhombus is bisected by the diagonal. That means if this angle is 60 degrees, this angle will be divided into two equal parts, 30 and 30. So the angles are bisected by the diagonal. The angles are bisected by the diagonals. So it is all about rhombus. So the next special parallelogram is square. Now we'll proceed to that. Square. We can define square in different form. One, square is a rectangle in which adjacent sides are congruent. Adjacent sides are congruent. We can define it in this form. Square, it's a rectangle. Here it is. It's a rectangle, but the adjacent side, this and this sides are congruent. So this implies all these sides will be congruent since it is rectangle. The opposite side also congruent. Again, we can define square in this form. A square is a rhombus. Square is a rhombus in which one angle is right angle. One angle is right angle. So we can define square in this form. A rhombus, so the adjacent side equal. One angle is right, this will be right, so it becomes a square. Therefore, we can define square in this form. Square is, it satisfies the properties of rectangle, the properties of rhombus. It also satisfies the properties of parallelogram. Therefore, here, let's try to list properties of square. Properties of square. So here, 1, square satisfies all properties. Square satisfies all properties of parallelogram. So it's a parallelogram. Again, square satisfies all properties of rectangle. Square satisfies all properties of rectangle. A square satisfies all properties of rhombus. Square satisfies all properties all properties of rhombus. So these are the properties when you say satisfy property of parallelogram. 4 properties: opposite sides equal, opposite angles are congruent, consecutive angles supplementary. Properties of rectangle, in addition, properties of rectangle, the diagonals are congruent and all angles are right angle. And property of rhombus, the diagonals perpendicular to each other. Here the diagonals are perpendicular to each other in the case of a square. And the angle will be bisected by the diagonal, so this angle will be 45 degree, again this will be 45. The diagonal bisects the angle. These all are the properties of square. So next to square, we will proceed to another quadrilateral, we call it kite. Kite. Okay, so kite is a quadrilateral. It is a quadrilateral in which pair of adjacent sides, in which a pair of adjacent sides, are congruent, but opposite sides are not congruent, but opposite sides are not congruent. So here kite has this form. This is a kite, A, B, C, D, a pair of adjacent sides. These two are side AB and side AD are adjacent. These two are congruent, and again on the other side BC and CD are also adjacent sides. They are congruent, but the opposite sides may not be congruent. Therefore, this is a kite. Now we can list the properties of kite. Properties. Okay. Here, 1, the diagonals of a kite are perpendicular to each other. Here, this diagonal and this diagonal, they are perpendicular. The diagonals of kite are perpendicular to each other. They are perpendicular to each other. And again, in the case of kite, the diagonals do not bisect each other, but the longest diagonal bisects the shortest in this case. So this means this is the longest diagonal bisect this into 2 equal parts, the shorter I mean. So here the longer diagonal bisects the shorter diagonal. So this is a property of a kite, and this is all about today's lesson. Then I'll give you questions for you to try it at home, and I'll give you 1 minute to copy the questions. Exercise 1. A four-sided figure, is called, what do you call a four-sided figure? 2. A quadrilateral, in which exactly one pair of opposite sides are parallel is called blank. A rectangle in which adjacent sides congruent is called. One more question. A quadrilateral in which both pair of opposite sides parallel is called blank. So please students, try this question in your home, and this is all about today's lesson. Until next lesson, goodbye.